bloodthirsty beetle. They crawl under the leaf litter in the shadows of the undergrowth. They jump between thorny stems, invisible to any eye, and they beat their wings with an almost inaudible buzz, looking for the moment to attack. The mantis waits, transformed into a living statue, its blades ready. The beetle patrols the ground, a walking shell in search of prey. Meanwhile, the dragonfly watches over its territory from above, a guardian of the skies. A legion of ants marches in endless columns, claiming every inch of land. The hornet emerges from its paper nest, ready to spread terror, and the mosquito seeks its next victim in the stillness of the swamp, bringing a silent death. In this almost microscopic world, a battle is fought in every corner. Here, every leaf is a battlefield, every drop of dew a disputed oasis. These are the predators of the insect world, the rulers of a microscopic yet infinite domain that has conquered every corner of the planet. While in the biodiverse empyrean of insects there are countless creatures, some skilled builders, others tireless pollen collectors, and even hungry leaf eaters, the pulse of the wild routine at these dimensions is dictated by ferocious and tiny killing machines, ready to sow terror in millions of victims in order to satisfy their overflowing appetite. From the undergrowth, the red assassin bug stalks its prey with icy patience. In an imperceptible movement, it plunges its sharp beak into the body of its victim. There is no struggle, just a slow paralysis, as the hunter injects saliva that dissolves the organs from within. It is a ruthless act, a macabre feast consummated in absolute silence. In the distant skies, the Asian giant hornet is a winged tyrant. With a buzzing sound announcing its attack, it pounces on its target. Their razor-sharp mandibles decapitate other wasps and bees in an instant. Each assault is a calculated massacre, a demonstration of raw power that subdues entire ecosystems. Over the jungle rivers, the dragonfly unleashes a new hunt, where unbridled violence is displayed in the form of unparalleled acrobatics. The predator of the skies snatches its prey from the air in a high-speed ambush, its spiny legs forming a deadly cage from which there is no escape. The impact is a verdict, and the victim is mercilessly dismembered in mid-flight, a feast consummated in the absolute dominion of the aerial hunter. In this silent war, every millimeter hides a struggle for survival, a cruel duel between the tyranny of the food chain and the irreverence toward the death of the weakest. A scenario that shows all the harshness of the perpetual confrontation that plagues the class Insectid is the enormous Amazon rainforest. A vast corner of the planet the size of entire continents where millions of species of these arthropods live. In the Amazon, the butterflies' morphoblues dance in the clearings, their wings painting the air. Orchid bees dressed in emerald green buzz among exotic flowers, and on giant leaves, caterpillars advance with infinite patience, devouring the green feast offered by this immense tropical forest. However, what appears to be a paradise on Earth where resources are endless and the Creator lavishes abundance can turn into a crime scene in just a few seconds, at the hands of a brutal predator. On the ground covered by a perpetual blanket of rotting leaves, where sunlight is only a distant memory, a lone killer, the bullet ant, patrols. Although its body, no more than 3 centimeters long, might not inspire terror, this avid hunter has become the image of death for everything at its feet in the food chain. His being is a fortress of chitin, a sturdy armor designed to withstand the dangers of the jungle, and all tinged with a reddish black that blends with the damp earth. Its jaws, 2 powerful pincers on the front of its head, are capable of holding its prey with relentless force. But its most feared weapon, by far, the one that gives its unfortunate prey nightmares, is hidden at the tip of its abdomen. A retractable stinger, a dagger of poison capable of producing unimaginable pain. This understory ruler spends his days tirelessly patrolling his lands. He advances with methodical determination over fallen branches, between gigantic roots, and through the labyrinth of leaf litter. Despite living in a large colony, unlike other ants, they do not usually march in columns outdoors, but prefer to live in complete solitude. To scan their surroundings, their long antennae move ceaselessly, tasting the air, reading the vibrations of the ground, deciphering the complex chemical language of the jungle. Every trace of smell, every imperceptible movement, is meticulously perceived by this cunning insect. His world is a map of scents and textures that guides him to his next victim. Although its diet can be supplemented with the exquisite and nutritious sweet nectar that drips from some plants, a near-infinite fuel source for its patrols, a predator will always be a predator. So it is in hunting that the bullet ant reveals its bloodthirsty nature, with small insects and other arthropods in the sights of this cruel killer. After a marathon patrol through its domain, and after detecting the vibrations of an unsuspecting cricket, the bullet ant alters its pace, its advance becoming slower, more deliberate. In a sudden change of attitude, the hunter practically disappears, each paw landing on the ground with absolute stealth, canceling out any sound. It's a slow and methodical advance, but one that's rewarded by maintaining the element of surprise on your side. After a desperate march, with the cricket within range, the ant can no longer contain its fury, and then it attacks. In a burst of speed and violence, it pounces on the insect, gripping it in its jaws, in a grip from which, no matter what it does, there is no escape. The prey struggles, in a totally useless effort, fighting for its life. But the predator has closed its trap, and the cricket is a living corpse. With the victim immobilized, without giving the hunt any thought, the predator executes the kill, and arching its abdomen, unsheathes the dagger that it conceals in the form of a stinger. This bladed weapon plunges into the cricket's body with surgical precision, and in a fraction of a second, injects its toxic venom. This powerful substance does the rest, causing uncontrollable convulsions in the prey, with suffocating pain and imminent paralysis. The poison has pronounced the sentence, and the fight is over. Once the prey is immobile, the ant begins an act of extreme cruelty, dismembering the unfortunate cricket using its powerful mandibles, and then enjoying the fruits of a lightning-fast yet exhausting hunt. While this time the dreaded bullet ant has used its irritating venom to get its hands on a juicy prey, this chemical weapon is not only used for attack. Despite its renowned reputation among its prey, some wild inhabitants of the Amazon occasionally make the grave mistake of viewing the bullet ant as a desirable meal, a mistake they will have to pay for with prolonged agony. When a curious coati rummages through the leaf litter near the nest entrance, in a pure and unmitigated display of bravery, the ant doesn't flee, doesn't hide, but emerges to confront a creature hundreds of times its size with defiant boldness. Before any physical contact, it emits a warning, a high-pitched sound produced by rubbing parts of its abdomen, a strulation that is the prelude to the agony to which the mammal will be subjected if it does not flee immediately. If the invader, in reckless behavior, ignores the signal and approaches too closely, the ant responds severely, running toward the intruder's leg and unsheathing its stinger to stab it. The reaction is instantaneous and violent, and the coati squeals, thrashing its limb in a desperate attempt to free itself from its tiny attacker. However, by now, the damage has already been done. The poison runs through his body, a wave of intense burning pain. The mammal becomes disoriented, stumbling, and agonizing from the unbearable pain, immediately abandoning its search for food, left only with the memory of the agony boiling in its body. He runs away in terror, not from a big cat or a snake, but from an insect barely 3 centimeters long. He has learned a lesson that will remain etched in his memory. The bullet ant's territory is inviolable. With the danger repelled, perhaps forever, the insect disappears back into the darkness, becoming a dark and lethal dot in the vastness of the Amazon rainforest. As the sun sets and night falls over the jungle, not far from the lands jealously dominated by the bullet ant, a nearly imperceptible buzzing sound appears, a high-pitched vibration that is lost in the nocturnal symphony of the jungle. This haunting melody comes from a fragile creature with thin legs and transparent wings, a being that, while seemingly insignificant in the vastness of the Amazon, has the power to decimate entire populations. It is the mosquito, a mass murderer, a winged executioner that appears in the depths of the tropical night to unleash death on the entire ecosystem. Its body, in a minimalist design, is specially created for infiltration and attack. It has no armor or crushing jaws. Its only weapon, a fine and complex needle-like proboscis, is a marvel of nature. Although the entire species carries the dreaded reputation of being bloodthirsty creatures of the night, the truth is that only the females are cursed with this ancient thirst. The males, content with a less peculiar diet, feed on the nectar of flowers, oblivious to the bloody mission of their companions. This insatiable need for blood is the substrate for forging the next generation. And to find it, they'll do whatever it takes, even if it means killing thousands of wildlife along the way. It all begins in the stillness of the night, or in the twilight, with swarms of mosquitoes crossing the skies. Thanks to their keen senses, these thirsty, blood-sucking creatures can detect the invisible breath trail of a sleeping mammal from a distance. Exhaled carbon dioxide is an unmistakable sign of life that guides females through dense vegetation. They follow this invisible current with pinpoint precision, driven by the promise of satisfying their hunger. As these tiny predators approach, a second sense takes over the onslaught. Capturing the heat emanating from a warm-blooded body, a monkey curled up on a branch, or a tapir resting in the mud, becomes an easy target in the vastness of the Amazon. After soaring up to hundreds of meters high and only a few centimeters away, the females scrutinize the skin of their future victim, becoming intoxicated by the cocktail of odors it emits. In order not to betray their, never better said, bloodthirsty intentions, when they are on the perimeter of their prey, the predators approach with extreme stealth, beating their wings with such speed and skill that they do not even disturb the air. Landing on the skin with the softness of a dust particle, the sleeping animal never realizes the involuntary contribution it is about to make to these insects. With the killers in position, the attack begins, and the proboscis, protected by a sheath, is pressed against the skin. The delicate sheath retracts, revealing a set of 6 stylets sharpened like surgical needles. These weapons cut the skin with microscopic efficiency, while penetrating deeper, seeking out a capillary. But the female doesn't drink immediately, but first injects her saliva, a complex concoction that anesthetizes the area so the victim doesn't feel the bite. It is in this saliva that the donor's lethal sentence is found, because in this elixir of death travels a countless number of parasites that will attack the mammal from within. With blood flowing, the female begins to feed, and her previously empty abdomen swells and turns dark red. In a matter of seconds, the hunters have obtained what they were looking for, and satisfied, each one retracts its proboscis and takes flight without warning of their presence. The only evidence of the crime may be a slight itch in the area hours later, just a subtle trace of what, for some, is an unmistakable mark of death. As the mosquitoes disappear into the night, taking the future of their lineage with them. For their victims, the damage is done, and the parasites begin to multiply, infesting their entire bodies. The war is no longer in the jungle, but in the animal's veins. It's not until days or weeks later that symptoms appear, in the form of a fever that weakens the muscles and a lethargy that clouds the senses. In this vulnerable state, and in the midst of one of the wildest ecosystems on the planet, the Amazon, no victim is able to survive the harsh environment. The feverish monkey, too weak to escape, becomes an easy target for any feline, and the lethargic tapir cannot flee when a predator appears. While mosquitoes are not voracious hunters who take the lives of their victims, they are stained with the blood of the countless deaths they carry out each night, in a slow-motion sentence dictated by their bite. Although when the darkness subsides, the mosquitoes disappear, other forms of death take center stage in the now illuminated Amazonian skies. This is not a stealthy, bloodthirsty swarm, but an incandescent flash appearing on high, a hunter forged in the air. With a slender, elongated body painted in vibrant colors, the dragonfly, the lord and master of the Amazonian skies, is a wild species as captivating as it is lethal. On its head, almost exclusively, two enormous compound eyes stand out, two faceted spheres containing up to 30,000 individual lenses. These sophisticated works of nature give him an almost complete field of vision, a mosaic of images that allows him to perceive the world in a dimension unattainable by other creatures. You can see ahead, to the sides, and even partially behind you, all at the same time. Its four woven crystal wings moving in perfect dissonance grant it absolute mastery over flight. Unlike other insects, it can move each one independently, a feat that allows it to hover motionless in the air, fly backward, and execute instant turns that defy all logic. Being the owner of the skies, her 6 legs are not made for walking. Covered in sharp forward-facing spines, their primary function is to form a deadly cage, a basket designed for one purpose only, to pluck their prey from the air. Its jaws, hidden under its head, are 2 serrated blades, powerful tools for dismembering its victims in mid-flight. When hunger strikes for the dragonfly, the entire insect world around it shudders, for a killer is on the loose. From his vantage point, on a dry branch overlooking the river, the hunter watches over his domain. With its head constantly turning, and its eyes processing every hum, every shadow cast across the water, the predator is on the alert for any potential victim. A mosquito, a fly, or even a smaller dragonfly can be a succulent snack that will satisfy your hunger. After a long wait, the lightning moment arrives, and in what is really no more than a few seconds, for the dragonfly, they pass in slow motion. By calculating the speed and trajectory of the prey, it predicts the exact point in space and time where its victim will be. And then, he launches. The air whistles as it passes, and the predator approaches its target not from behind, but from below or from a blind spot, eliminating any possibility of evasion. The prey remains completely unaware of its impending death until the very last moment. And it is at that moment that the death basket closes, with the 6 spiny legs folding around the victim with relentless force. At this point, there is no escape. Without even stopping its flight, the dragonfly brings the prey into its jaws, and the terrifying sound of the insect's exoskeleton crunching is lost in the wind. The feast is consumed tens of meters above the ground, an act of predation so fleeting and efficient that it leaves hardly a trace. Although the most frequent victims of the dragonfly's ferocity tend to be tiny insects that become its nutritious sustenance, if its domain is violated by an invader, this temperamental predator will not falter in defending what is rightfully its, even against its own kind. When 2 males clash in a territorial dispute, an acrobatic battle breaks out, with 2 flashes of color chasing each other in impossible spirals and turns, in what at first glance seems more like a spectacle than a battle for dominance of the skies. Both opponents charge at each other in the air, colliding with suppressed fury again and again. These by no means gentle encounters do not usually have a fatal outcome, but their outcome does affect the chances of survival of both dragonflies. While the victorious male will enjoy the privilege of seeing his hunting ground expand, the defeated male will be stripped of what was once his, limiting his access to resources and potentially plunging him into agonizing starvation. But in this duel, it's not just the right to hunt that's at stake. Access to females is also part of the prize for the winning male, a privilege that guarantees him copulation with countless females, continuing his lineage. Courtship and copulation itself, of course, is a dance in the air in which the suitor pursues the chosen female in a display of power and agility to attract her attention. If the female is receptive, copulation does not take long to take place, in a modest act that can last from a few seconds to an hour, during which the male transfers his lineage to the future mother of his offspring. But, after fulfilling his intentions, in a twist of nature's dictates, the male does not abandon the fertilized female, but becomes her personal guardian, staying by her side and escorting her to the surface of the water, protecting her from other rival males while she prepares to lay her legacy. Once the eggs are laid, the parent's work is over. There is no nurturing, there is no protection. These young, even before birth, must fend for themselves to prevail, and perhaps one day become the masters of the Amazonian skies. But the world of insects is not restricted to this vast corner of the tropical rainforest on the edge of South America. On the other side of the planet, thousands of miles away, in the dense forests of Southeast Asia, a deep, low hum, announces the arrival of a conqueror. It is not the agile whistle of a solitary hunter, but the heavy, menacing rumble of a flying fortress. With a massive body, up to 5 centimeters long, the Asian giant hornet is an armored beast, a battleship covered with chitinous plates in shades of black and gold. A broad, formidable head, a deep orange, serves as a platform for 2 disproportionate jaws, 2 shears designed for dismemberment. Its wingspan rivals that of some small birds, and its flight is a demonstration of pure power. This titan is the apex predator of the flying insect world. Its 6 legs are robust, capable of holding prey that struggles furiously. Their jaws not only chew but crush, cut, and decapitate with terrifying efficiency. And at the end of its abdomen, it wields a 6-millimeter long stinger. This is not a one-time weapon, as it can sting again and again, injecting a cocktail of venom that dissolves tissue and attacks its victims' nervous systems. In addition to being a killing machine, the hornet is extremely versatile in its hunts, capable of terrorizing its prey both in complete solitude and in the company of its peers. When he opts for a solitary hunt, he is an aerial bully who imposes his will through brute force. Patrolling the treetops, their large eyes scan the dense foliage for other large insects. Where others see potential danger, this feared hunter spots what could be a good meal. Suddenly, in the distance, a praying mantis appears. Another respected hunter who, confident in her own power, is completely unaware that the food chain is about to turn against her. The hornet, without even trying to disguise its intentions, does not use stealth or any kind of mitigating factor. In contrast, he launches into a direct and overwhelming attack, ramming his victim into the air in a burst of violence that demonstrates his immense physical superiority. The sturdy insect holds its prey with its legs, neutralizing any vestige of defense, and almost in unison, its jaws spring into action. There is no preamble, there is no room for mercy. With a single brutal bite to the base of the head, the predator kills the mantis, leaving it decapitated, its body still trembling as the hornet begins to dismember it, in a spectacle that demonstrates all the savagery that governs the microscopic and violent world of insects. Focused on his feast, the hunter methodically tears off the wings and legs of his prey, leaving the protein-rich thorax to feed the larvae waiting in their nest. While killing a praying mantis is a feat for many species, for the giant hornet, it is an everyday occurrence, and just a tiny example of its ferocity. Its true and most fearsome side is revealed when the prey is an entire colony. A scout hornet discovers a honeybee nest, a feast for this formidable apex predator. Seeing this fearsome intruder on the perimeter of their home, the guard bees, brave but outnumbered and outgunned, attempt to repel the giant. But no force in the entire vast insect empire can stand against this titan, and the hornet annihilates them one by one with chilling ease. With the guards out of the picture, the invader accomplishes a more sinister purpose, rubbing his abdomen against the hive entrance, leaving a pheromone mark, a chemical death sentence. After this almost harmless incursion, which left only a couple of victims, the hornet returns to its own stronghold, an underground nest or a hollow in a tree. With their arrival, the pheromone trail unleashes the colony's fury, and within minutes, this death squad is mobilized. Between 20 and 30 hornets, an elite force, take to the skies, following the chemical trail that leads them directly to the hive marked for death. What follows is a complete massacre. The hornets, trained killers, arrive at the entrance of the hive and begin the annihilation of an entire world. The bees, plunged into chaos and despair, emerge by the thousands, a wave of defenders willing to die for their queen. They launch themselves at the giants, trying to sink their stingers in, but the hornets' armor is too thick, and they are unfazed by the poor defense of their victims. Instead, the invaders respond with unbridled brutality, positioning themselves at the entrance to the hive, and the mass slaughter begins. With their mandibles, they catch the bees in midair and decapitate them, one after another, in a massacre in which up to 40 bees per minute pass away. The bodies and heads of the defenders fall to the ground like a macabre rain, turning the entrance to the hive into a cemetery. In less than 2 hours, a colony of 30,000 bees is reduced to rubble by these ruthless killers, and the frantic buzz of battle gives way to an eerie silence. Once the resistance has been crushed, the occupation begins, with the invaders entering the now silent hive and claiming it as their own. Predators completely ignore the huge amounts of honey around them, as their attack has a clear and even more bloodthirsty target: the bee larvae and pupae. Like plunderers, the hornets systematically destroy the cells of the honeycomb, extracting the defenseless young. But this raid, which wiped out the entire colony, was not to satisfy their own appetite, but rather had the nobler purpose of providing food for their own larvae. Each hornet leaves the hive laden with copious amounts of larvae, a highly nutritious food for its offspring, which at the same time marks the complete extinction of bees. Although after this assault on the hive, and after leaving a trail of destruction in their wake, these ferocious insects seem to be at the top of the animal kingdom's food chain. The truth is that some predators, unaware of these acts of savagery, do not hesitate to subdue them, turning the executioners into prey. Some birds of prey, such as the eastern honey buzzard, have developed thick, scaly plumage that offers protection against stings. These birds are capable of excavating and destroying hornet nests to devour their larvae, one of the few natural enemies this winged tyrant has to fear. Near the robust nest of the Asian giant hornets, there is another form of lethality. A much more refined one that disguises itself as beauty, luring its victims into a deadly embrace. It does not kill with the force of a large swarm, but with the ambush subtlety of a shadow hunter. With petal-shaped legs and a body resembling the heart of a bud about to open, the orchid mantis is a living sculpture of white and pink hues, a creature of such captivating and delicate beauty that it seems to border on fantasy. But beneath that facade of fragility lies a cold-blooded killer, without the slightest trace of mercy when it comes to taking the life of her prey. Every part of your body is a piece of a carefully orchestrated deception. Its four hind legs are flattened into broad, delicate lobes that perfectly replicate the texture and shape of an orchid's petals. Their coloring, a mix of creamy whites, deep pinks, and subtle yellows, not only mimics a flower, but is often more attractive to pollinating insects than real flowers. This insect, immersed in its role, can even subtly adjust its color to blend in with the floral environment around it. Of course, in this deception, immobility is crucial, so the mantis freezes for hours, sometimes days, gently swaying in the breeze as any flower would. While immersed in his role as a flower, his eyes, two dark and alert points, miss no detail of his surroundings, constantly scanning his surroundings in search of the slightest movement. When any potential prey appears, the orchid mantis has its fearsome weapons within reach, hidden under its thorax, in the form of two raptorial front legs, crowned with rows of needle-sharp spines. What at first glance appear to be petals are actually sharp blades. Given its prodigious stealth abilities, this predator's hunting strategy is a display of absolute patience. The orchid mantis doesn't chase its prey. It waits for it to come to it, heading straight for certain death. Positioned on a branch or in the center of an inflorescence, it becomes the perfect lure, with its vibrant colors becoming irresistible to any nectarivore. It is an illusion that promises nectar, but only offers death. A bee, Perhaps one of the former inhabitants of the hive destroyed by the Asian giant hornets, lured by the promise of pollen, flies closer. He doesn't perceive any danger. See a perfect symmetrical vibrant flower. The mantis, fully immersed in its role, gives no sign of its violent ambush, and the bee moves closer, its antennae almost touching the false petals. And suddenly, violence breaks out. There is no warning. There is no sound. It is an almost imperceptible movement, of no more than 1/100th of a second, with the front legs shooting out. The spines stick into the bee's body, trapping it in a cage from which escape is impossible. What just a moment ago was the guarantee of an exquisite sip of nectar has become a death trap. The fight is brief and completely one-sided. The mantis, with eerie calm, pulls its still-alive, struggling victim toward its jaws. Here, this captivating predator then reveals its cruelest face, beginning to methodically devour its prey, often starting with the head, and then patiently enjoying its inert body. It is an act of pure predation, stripped of any trace of mercy, carried out by one of the most beautiful creatures on the planet. Although it reveals its most bloodthirsty face when swallowing its prey, the orchid mantis doesn't just kill to eat. When the air is charged with pheromones and praying mantises feel the call of reproduction, the ecosystem of Southeast Asia's dense jungles is ready to witness a chaotic and violent mating season. Given the clear size differences, with the female being a giant compared to the male, often doubling his size, and above all, the temperament of the female, for the tiny male, the instinct to reproduce is a suicide mission. When he detects a likely receptive female, the suitor must approach with extreme caution. Each step could be the last, and not exactly of the courtship, but of his life. Driven by the desire to mate, the male approaches from behind, in a slow and erratic flight, trying to land on her back without alerting her, because otherwise the female, who is much larger and more powerful, may interpret him as another prey. If a male eager for copulation is successful in avoiding what would otherwise be certain death, he clings to the temperamental female, and copulation takes place in constant tension, always on the verge of being devoured. Despite the suitor's caution, the female's predatory instinct is often stronger, and in a swift turn, she catches him with her front legs, and he becomes another meal. It is a sacrifice of exorbitant cost, where the males pay for their lust with their lives. Almost always, in a single mating season, a female will devour several males, restricting her coveted copulation to only the one who is capable of subduing her. But even the suitor who manages to subdue the mantis to his charms, and above all, to his physical strength, cannot declare victory. After copulation, or even during it, the female can decapitate the man who, just seconds before, was her partner in a single movement, and then devour him. While this is, from all accounts, an act of sheer savagery, it also represents crucial behavior at the time of laying eggs. With the expectant mother strengthened by such a copious meal, she is able to lay her numerous larvae, assuming the plundering of resources that this entails. Despite its near-perfect camouflage, the orchid mantis is not impregnable, as there are predators that have learned to look beyond the deception, finding in this voracious hunter a more than appetizing prey. Large birds, lizards, and spiders can detect it if it moves at the wrong moment. Against this, their main defense, once discovered, is intimidation. If it feels directly threatened, it abandons its flower pose and adopts a fighting stance, with its front legs raised, opening them like threatening wings, to appear larger and more dangerous. This staging is a last resort, a desperate bid to deter the attacker. Fortunately for this insect, its survival often depends on its stillness, on its ability to become nothing more than a flower in the vastness of the jungle. While some of the rulers of the insect world base their existence on deception, others despise patience and rely solely on bursts of pure, crushing speed. In the sun-drenched jungle clearings and heat-hardened trails, a metallic glint pierces the ground. It's not a bullet. It's the tiger beetle, a creature designed by the creator himself for speed. Its body, an iridescent shell of green, blue, or copper tones, deceives the ferocity of its nature. This armored hunter is the definition of persecution, a ruler of the land who subjugates all smaller beings to his will. Its long, slender legs are not for show, but an advanced propulsion system that propels its body forward with explosive force. This speedster covers more than 100 times his body length in a single second, moving with a speed that distorts reality. For this predator, patience is overrated when hunting, preferring to take down its victims with pure bursts of speed. When stalking its prey, its enormous compound eyes, which dominate its head, scan the terrain thoroughly. Every vibration, every moving shadow, is immediately detected and processed as a potential target. Nothing escapes his almost total field of vision. When a prey is identified, the beetle does not approach. There is no passive approach to planning your strategy. It just explodes. With no time to waste, the hunter pounces on his victim in a lightning attack. This persecution is an act of violence against oneself. The beetle moves so fast that its own eyes are unable to gather enough light to form an image, turning its charge into a blind dash. Faced with this, its advance is a sequence of spasmodic starts and stops, almost impulsive bursts alternating with pauses of fractions of a second to recalculate the position of the prey, and then another burst of speed. For the victim, the world is reduced to a flash that disappears and reappears, ever closer, sealing their fate, watching death approach. Whatever the prey does, the end of the race is inevitable and extremely violent. The tiger beetle crashes into its victim, impaling it with its giant sickle-shaped mandibles. These chitin weapons are not made to cut, but to pierce, anchor, and tear, the perfect tools of an assassin. The hunter often begins to dismember his victim while it is still writhing, an act of cruelty dictated by a hunger that never ceases. But the lethality of this species is not forged on the surface, born from the darkness underground. The fertilized female deposits her eggs in individual tunnels that she drills one by one in the compact soil. Under modest climatic conditions, each egg hatches into a creature even more monstrous than the adult. The larva is a living death trap, a horror anchored in the gloom. From their first days of life, tiger beetle hatchlings are fierce hunters, ready to kill without mercy. Each larva builds a vertical burrow, a perfectly cylindrical execution pit, and positions itself at the entrance, using its armored, flattened head as a living plug to seal the opening. There it waits, motionless, with its jaws open like an alligator. Sharp hooks on its abdomen anchor it to the tunnel walls, ensuring that no prey, no matter how strong, can tear it from its stronghold. When an unsuspecting ant, spider, or other insect walks over the entrance, the larva emerges from the soil. The attack is instantaneous and vertical, trapping the victim in a movement, and dragging it into the darkness of the burrow to be devoured alive. In this planned slaughter, the ground itself becomes a weapon, where each hole is the mouth of a grave. But in these minefields, the victims do not always turn out to be of another species. In this underground kingdom, mercy does not exist, and cannibalism is the law. If a larva falls into another's burrow, it is treated as just another prey, an encounter that ends with only one survivor. For several years, the larva molts and grows, deepening its pit with each stage, until it seals the entrance to transform. By the time he emerges as an adult, his killer instinct has been honed, trading the patience of an underground trap for the fury of the chase. Despite its prodigious abilities as a predator and its excessive ferocity, the adult tiger beetle is not immune to being subjected to the fury of other insectivores. His life is a war on two fronts, as a hunter and as a prey. Robber flies, aerial killers as fast as he is, can intercept him in mid-flight. On the ground, lizards and predatory birds wait for their moment, waiting for a split second of distraction to attack. Against these purveyors of death, their only defense is an immediate and chaotic burst of speed, a flight as explosive as their attacks. But the tormentors of the insect world don't just forge their tyranny in the welcoming tropical forests. On the other side of the world, in the middle of the American Wild West, the Sonoran Desert, a land forged by sun and aridity, is the scene of a form of collective predation, a unified horde of thousands of bodies advancing with a single purpose: to claim a new life. A tremor in the sand, a reddish stain that expands under the scorching heat, announces the presence of an empire. They are not individuals. They are a superorganism equipped with thousands of jaws, driven by a single instinct: to conquer and defend. They are the red ants, an armored plague whose aggressiveness knows no bounds, an infinite army capable of subduing any adversary with their insurmountable numerical superiority. Although the secret of its lethality lies in its mass attack, a single worker is a marvel of compact hostility. Its body, just a few millimeters thick, is covered in a reddish natural armor, a shield against the attacks of its enemies. Their powerful jaws are the perfect tools for gripping the flesh of their opponents. When a red ant grabs its rival, there is no force in nature that can free it. But it is in its abdomen where its most lethal weapon is found by far, a robust stinger loaded with a poison that burns like the desert sun. Of course, the power of a single one is irrelevant compared to the aggressiveness and brutality of their mass attack. Their true weapon is the legion. There are few wild species on the face of the planet that display social behavior as fascinating as these insects. Their society is built on a formidable nest, an impregnable fortress, a mound of earth and sand that rises above the landscape. Beneath the surface, a subterranean city of tunnels and chambers stretches into darkness, protecting the queen and the next generation of warriors. Although their refuge is almost a bunker against invaders, when a stranger dares to attack their home, the red ants defend their stronghold with extreme ferocity. Terror is unleashed with a single mistake. A desert lizard, seeking shade, wanders too close to the colony's invisible perimeter, and the sentries patrolling the area instantly detect the vibration, the giant's shadow. There is no warning here, no hesitation, and not even anything remotely resembling fear. Immediately the first wave attacks. Several ants pounce on the reptile's legs, their jaws clamping down on the scales. And, in a single movement, they release an alarm pheromone, a chemical cry that resonates in the depths of the nest. It is the voice of war for the rest of the colony. The response is an eruption of violence, with hundreds and then thousands of ants pouring out of the nest entrances, forming a red tide of fury that flows across the sand. They move as a single entity, a torrent of jaws and stingers directed toward the intruder. The lizard, surprised by the explosiveness of the attack, tries to flee, but it's too late, and the swarm catches up with him. Ants crawl up his legs, swarming his body, searching for any break in his scaly armor. The jaws clamp down, and the stingers begin their work. A bite is painful. 100 bites are torture, but 1,000 is a death sentence. The poison floods the reptile's body, a wave of fire that causes paralysis and unbearable pain. The lizard thrashes, rolls on the sand, tries to crush its tiny tormentors, but for everyone that dies, 10 more take its place. The legion is relentless, and after a few minutes, the giant has fallen, not by a single weapon, but by 1,000 tiny cuts. Once the victim lies motionless, a new mission begins, the harvesting of such a similar prey. The hive becomes an army of bloodthirsty butchers. Methodically, they dismember the body, cutting off chunks of flesh and transporting them in an orderly procession back to the underground city. Nothing is wasted. The death of the intruder will become the colony's livelihood for perhaps several days. Although these multitudinous insects are extremely social, this collective behavior is limited only to members of their colony. On the contrary, when the territories of two neighboring colonies overlap, a civil war in the ant world is about to break out. Two armies of thousands of combatants clash in a pitched battle. Jaws lock, stingers sink in, venom flows. The battlefield is covered with the bodies of the fallen. It's a fight for resources, for dominance, an all-out war that can last for days and redraw the borders of empire in the sand. But even this force of nature has a worthy adversary. The horned lizard, an armored reptile adapted to life in the desert, is a predator that has evolved to challenge the legion. The hunter sits near the anthill, immune to the panic that others feel, since his scaly skin is a defense against stings. With its long, sticky tongue, it captures the ants one by one, a constant feast in front of the fortress's very door. It's a stark scene, and at the same time a reminder that, in the wild, even the largest armies can be overwhelmed. In the same thickets where the Red Legion fights its battles, a hunter of another lineage waits, motionless, like a specter carved in the dry vegetation. Its slender, angular body, an assembly of straight lines and sharp angles, blends in with the stems and leaves dried by the sun. He remains in a posture of false piety, with his weapons folded in a gesture that seems like a prayer. But his devotion is only to the hunt, and his stillness is the prelude to explosive violence. With a triangular head capable of rotating almost 180 degrees, the praying mantis is the reincarnation of a voracious predator on a small scale. Differentiating itself from its distant relative on the other side of the world, this killer, a master of camouflage, chooses to dye itself shades of pale green or earthy brown, a cloak that allows it to completely disappear among the desert plants. The mantis doesn't hide, it simply becomes part of the landscape. Its body imitates a stem, its wings look like leaves, and its immobility is absolute. It can remain in the same position for hours, a patient ghost waiting for the world to move around it. Its triangular head is a mobile watchtower on a static body, while its two large compound eyes give it exceptional stereoscopic vision, allowing it to judge distance with millimeter precision. When her appetite takes over, her weapons are always ready, folded under her chest. Its two front legs are not for walking. They are biological sickles, designed for a single devastating purpose, to catch and hold. Each leg is armed with a double row of sharp spines, which fit together like the teeth of a steel trap. Praying mantis hunting is a feat of patience and stealth. The predator chooses its hunting ground, a stem or branch on a route frequented by other insects, and then the waiting begins. While the hunter freezes, desert life continues its course. The sun moves across the sky, shadows lengthen and shorten, but the mantis remains unfazed. A grasshopper, oblivious to the danger, advances along the same branch, perhaps precisely in search of sustenance. Upon spotting this naive arthropod, the mantis follows it, not with its body, but only with its head, slowly turning it, its eyes fixed on the target. The grasshopper approaches, inch by inch, and the predator shows no sign, no tension. It is a statue, an inert part of the plant, which apparently does not represent any danger. As the prey draws ever closer, time seems to stand still, and then In a lightning-fast movement that lasts less than a blink of an eye, the scythes it carries as front legs shoot out. The attack is one of the fastest in the animal world, a cold and calculated execution, with the spines digging into the grasshopper's body, impaling it. Escape, more than difficult, is impossible. The victim, in a futile effort, struggles furiously, but is caught in an embrace from which there is no escape. With its prey subdued, the mantis, displaying a chilling calm, carries its still-living prey to its jaws and begins to devour it, an act that reflects the savagery that dominates the insect world in the Sonoran Desert. It almost always starts with the head, to quickly incapacitate the victim and stop their struggle. The predator consumes its feast without haste, in a demonstration of absolute dominance, indifferent to the agony of its prey. But even though it's a formidable hunter, the mantis isn't an invulnerable killer, and sometimes the food chain turns against it, in a kind of revenge for all the lives it has claimed. Birds, frogs, lizards, bats, and even spiders see this feared executioner as an exquisite and exotic prey rich in protein. Faced with this, the mantis, far from surrendering itself as easy prey, takes refuge in its unparalleled camouflage to leave its pursuers with an empty stomach. Remaining motionless, the insect is almost invisible to these hungry predators patrolling the desert. In many cases, birds and bats perch on branches just centimeters away from the invertebrate, without realizing its presence. Although its camouflage is a work of nature, which allows it to vanish before the eyes of its hunters, when it is discovered, its first reaction is a 180-degree turn in its stealth, showing, on the contrary, a striking display of intimidation. Looking its predator straight in the eye, it rears up, raising its front legs menacingly, and opens its wings, revealing brightly colored spots. It is a stance designed to surprise and scare the attacker, to appear larger, and even more aggressive than it already is. One last gamble to gain a vital second and have a chance to escape. The stillness of the mantis is a lethal weapon, but in the desert, other killers have perfected the art of stalking on the move. Hidden among the crevices of the rocks and under the shade of the cacti, a methodical hunter patrols his territory, not with the patience of a statue, but with the stealth of a gliding shadow. With an elongated, angular body, no longer than 2 centimeters, covered in dark armor often marked with a warning red, a color scheme that screams danger, the red assassin bug is a hitman of the insect world. This avid predator, unlike the mantis, does not carry its weapons on its legs, folded in a false prayer, but its face itself is a bladed weapon, a deadly dagger folded beneath its head. Its long, slender legs allow it to move with almost imperceptible slowness, or with surprising bursts of speed when necessary. Its antennae, always in motion, feel the air, detecting the vibrations and chemical traces of its prey, like a bloodhound, stalking its next victim. But its most defining feature, without a doubt, is its prominent beak, a curved and segmented face, sharp as a needle. At rest, it remains folded and hidden under its body, concealing the ferocity of a bloodthirsty hunter. But at the moment of attack, it unfolds like an assassin's weapon, ready to deliver a fatal blow. This sharp spear not only pierces, but also carries within it an elixir of death. The hunt for the assassin bug is a demonstration of stealth and calculated cruelty. Unlike other relentless predators, such as the tiger beetle, It does not waste energy on frantic chases, but prefers to become a stalker. It detects its prey, a caterpillar, a beetle, or even a spider, and like a feline, begins a slow and methodical approach. Each step is precise, silent. It glides over the sand and rocks, using every shadow, every contour of the terrain to conceal its advance. The prey, busy in its own search for food, is unaware of the shadow that looms over it, a promise of a violent death. The bedbug approaches within striking distance, just a few millimeters, and then he launches into a swift and precise attack. Their front legs, often covered with sticky hairs or spines, cling to the victim, immobilizing it. And at that very moment, its sharp beak unfolds. Then, with surprising force, it plunges it into a weak spot in its prey's armor, a joint, or the soft membrane of its neck. The first injection is a neurotoxic venom, an electrical storm that attacks the prey's nervous system, extinguishing its life in seconds. The victim's struggle is brief, barely a spasm, but the killing is not over. Once the prey is immobilized, the bug injects a second substance, a digestive saliva. This enzyme cocktail dissolves the victim's internal tissues from within, turning their organs and muscles into a nutritious broth. The predator waits patiently while this toxic concentrate does its work. And then, after the wait is over, it uses its beak like a straw, sucking up the liquefied contents of its prey, in a methodical feast, consummated without haste. When it's over, all that remains is an empty shell, the intact exoskeleton of a creature that has been devoured from the inside out, the memory of a silent death perpetrated by a ruthless hunter. Some of these desert hitmen have taken their brutality a step further, turning the ghosts of their prey into their own shield. After emptying a victim, often an ant, the bedbug does not discard the corpse. With grotesque precision, he seizes the shell, incorporating it into his own back, along with the remains of his previous hunts. Thus, he constructs an armor made of dead bodies, a macabre cloak that, far from being a trophy, represents a multi-layered camouflage. Visually, it breaks up the bug's silhouette, making it look like a pile of abstract rubble, while olfactorily, it masks it with the scent of its prey, confusing hunting predators with a good nose, such as spiders. This unique camouflage is a prodigious survival measure when facing the most grotesque predators who dare to see it as a desirable prey. Birds, lizards, frogs, snakes, and even small mammals do not hesitate to incorporate the aggressive bedbug into their diet, if they have the opportunity. To cope with its compromising position in the food chain, its main defense is its stealth, adopting an elusive temperament, which, along with its death camouflage, hides it from falling into disgrace in the eyes of its hunters. But when besieged by a predator that has revealed its hiding place, this ferocious insect doesn't think twice and unsheathes its poison-laden beak. Although this deterrent is specifically designed for small prey, a well-landed defensive bite on a larger predator can cause excruciating pain, a stinging warning that is often more than enough to make the attacker reconsider getting in the red bug's way. After surviving death, this hitman walks away, revealing a grotesque silhouette adorned with the shells of his prey. Not far from the domain of the red bug, another tyrant of the class Insectid appears. Among the dry stems and thorny leaves lurks the robber fly, a tiny hunter thirsty for death. His perch is a throne of thorns, a vantage point with a privileged view of the relentless Sonoran desert battlefield. Its body, covered with stiff bristles and a dark shell, is not that of a simple insect, but the design of a specialized killer. Its enormous compound eyes watch everything, 1,000 tiny lenses that record every movement, every fleeting shadow that appears in its hostile corner of this arid habitat. With hunger pressing, this almost microscopic hunter filters out the buzzing of irrelevant insects, those that merely interfere with its hunt, and waits for a specific flight signature, the sound of worthy prey. Clinging to a convenient perch with its long spiny legs, the fly waits for the right moment to show off its feared hunting skills. During this marathon wait, his body remains almost completely still, masking all the ferocity he is capable of unleashing in just a few seconds. The armored fly remains motionless on an agave leaf, carefully observing its surroundings. Suddenly, the desert wind carries the buzzing of a solitary bee approaching a wildflower, unaware of the danger that awaits it nearby. For the bee, it's just another day of gathering in the desert. Meanwhile, for the robber fly, the golden opportunity has arrived. Without hesitation, the predator bends, its legs tensing against the blade, its chest muscles contracting in the prelude to an explosive charge. But this attack is not at all random. The robber fly calculates the trajectory, wind speed, and position of its victim in just a few seconds. Aware that in an ecosystem as austere as this, prey is not particularly abundant, there is no room for error. With every detail of his attack carefully planned, and the bee closing in on what is about to become a crime scene, the winged hunter catapults from his perch. Its movement is an explosion of speed, a direct and accurate impulse that leaves the bee without the slightest possibility of reaction. The air is torn apart by its acceleration, and the impact is a sharp mid-air crash, cutting off the prey's buzz abruptly. Before it can process the threat, the robber fly has intercepted it, its spiny legs wrapping around it like tentacles, ensnaring the bee's body, and neutralizing its sting and wings in one motion. There is no struggle. It is rather a swift and fierce submission. With the prey immobilized, the predator uses its most fearsome weapon, a short, robust beak, a sharp and hard tool specially created for killing. He immediately stabs with this bladed weapon at his opponent's most vulnerable point, usually the neck or back of the head. As if the damage caused by this stab were not enough, through its beak, the fly injects a paralyzing saliva, which renders the prey inert and begins to dissolve its organs. The predator does not chew. It does not tear. It simply waits placidly for its venom to destroy its prey from within. Shortly after, with the same beak with which it killed the defenseless bee, the executioner sucks up the liquefied remains, emptying the body of its prey until only an empty shell remains. Once satiated, the fly discards its victim's outer covering and returns to its perch, ready to wait for the next one. Bees, wasps, dragonflies, and even other flies, no flying insect is safe from their ambush. Its courage is such that it does not hesitate to attack larger and more dangerous prey, all relying on the speed of its attack and the potency of its venom. But the robber fly's legacy doesn't end in the air. The female, after her own hunting and mating cycle, finds a suitable spot on the ground or in rotting wood, and lays her eggs, seeding the next generation of killers. From them will emerge whitish, legless larvae, creatures from the subsoil that do not know the sky, but that display the same predatory instinct. These not at all cute young crawl through the ground, hunting the larvae of beetles and other underground insects. With their powerful jaws, they attack in the darkness and continue the war for survival on a front hidden beneath the desert surface, dreaming of one day dominating the air like their ancestors. Although ferocious hunters like the robber fly, the bullet ant and the Asian giant hornet are true world devourers, leaving chaos and death in their wake. The truth is that their role in the ecosystem is crucial for the control of other species, contributing to the delicate balance, both in the insect world and in the animal kingdom. But in these small-scale realms, an alien force begins to unravel the fragile balance of life, forever changing this miniature universe. It is a threat that not even the most powerful jaws, the most lethal venom, or the sharpest stingers can fight. For the dragonfly, the rivers and swamps where its young are born, underwater kingdoms where its nymphs hunt like monsters, become more turbid and sterile every day. The once crystalline, now polluted waters drown the future of their lineage before it can take flight. In Asian forests, the carpet of flowers on which the orchid mantis depends for its deception is fading. The ancient trees fall, and with them disappear the orchids that are her stage and her weapon, leaving her exposed to a world she no longer understands. The giant hornet, the tyrant of the skies, finds its prey increasingly scarce. As a result of the indiscriminate use of pesticides, the air itself seems carry an evil that weakens the colonies it feeds on, breaking a chain forged over millennia. And in the Amazon rainforest, the ground patrolled by the bullet ant fragments and shrinks. Their territory, once an unbroken empire of dead leaves and shadow, is cornered by a silent advance that devours the jungle. As a result of the greenhouse effect, tropical fires ravage the Amazon every year with increasing intensity, with flames devouring forests the size of entire countries and claiming the lives of millions of insects. But even in the face of this devastation, this small-scale universe refuses to perish with indomitable tenacity. In the heart of the continents, there are still sanctuaries where these tiny yet majestic life forms prevail unchallenged. Fragments of a lost empire that refuses to disappear, where these tiny hunters continue to wage their eternal battles to rule the insect world. The resilience of this miniature universe is a testament to the power of life. Its survival is a reflection of the planet's health, and its silence is the most thunderous warning. Have you been amazed by the war stories of the insect world's deadliest predators? So don't forget to give us a like, and leave a comment in the comments section to tell us which of these executioners you thought was the most ruthless. To make sure you don't miss our upcoming explorations into the wild, remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell. Also, share this video so more people can discover this brutal and fascinating universe that's hiding in plain sight. Without further ado, see you next time with more ferocious mantises, bloodthirsty beetles, endless armies of ants, and of course stories of wild lives.